The Crafty has been such an important bike for Mondraker. In fact, it's their best-selling model by quite a margin. So it's a really important launch for Mondraker. This is an all-new Crafty. Everything about it's new. New frame, new suspension design, and this e-bike now comes with Bosch's brand new Generation 5 motor system with either an 800 watt-hour or a 600 watt-hour removable battery. It's a beautiful looking e-bike. We're in a beautiful location in Italy. In this video, I'm going to share everything you need to know about Mondraker's new Crafty. I'm here in Finale Ligure, Italy, a mountain biking hotspot known for its world-class trails with rocky descents, challenging climbs and diverse terrain. It's a destination that tests both rider and machine. Today, I'm putting the Crafty Carbon through its paces. The bike is built for a wide range of mountain terrain, from technical climbs to fast, flowy descents, with 160mm of front suspension travel and 150mm in the rear. The updated Zero suspension system is designed to give more grip and comfort over mixed terrain. The frame uses Mondraker's Stealth Air Carbon, which Mondraker claim maximises strength while reducing weight. This creates a light, durable frame that's stiff for power transfer, yet should be flexible enough and compliant enough to handle rough terrain. The Crafty Carbon is available in 5 sizes, from small to extra large. Mondraker has tuned the geometry for better stability on steeper and rougher terrain. It's 1 degree slacker out the front than the previous gen. There's a flip chip that allows you to adjust the head angle slightly, as well as raising or lowering the bottom bracket height. So one of the things that really appeals to me about this bike is the chainstay length. If you've watched any of my videos over the past year or so, I've been talking about geometry and balance and proportional rear centers to front centers. This is one of the first e-bikes over the past couple of years that's really thought about how long the rear chainstay is versus how long the front center is. And I find personally, because I ride usually XL bikes, when chainstays are very short, there's 2 things that affects. First of all is the climbing ability and the ability to weight the front wheel. The front wheel can get really light on steep climbs. With a longer chainstay, essentially you've got more of a wheel behind you. So the front wheel is more planted on the ground and you can get way more drive through the rear tyre and more traction and more control. So it makes a big difference, especially on larger bikes. If you're riding XL frames in your tool, when you have a short chainstay, it makes it very hard to weight the front and climbs are much harder. I can climb much easier with a larger chainstay, a longer rear centre. Now Mondraker are actually using 2 chainstay lengths. So for the smaller size bikes, right up until the medium large size, they're using 455mm chainstays. And on the large and XL, they're using 465. So I'm really glad they've been bold and brave and gone out there with long chainstays, because I think there was a trend over the past few years to really shorten up rear ends on bikes. And when chainstays are the same length across the size, a small does not ride the same as an extra large. The rider balance point is different. And that brings me on to my second point. I find it much easier to load the front wheel on corners. If you think about where your weight is positioned and the bottom bracket and your pedals are level, with a longer rear center, your weight is pushed further forward. So the front tire bites in way easier. Now it does feel different out the back. It's not as poppy, lively or agile, but I find it way more stable, way more comfortable, more confidence inspiring. And actually I think that ends up me feeling more playful on the bike, because I'm not worried about losing grip on the front wheel or the front lifting up so much. I think they've done a really good job here, and kudos to Mondraker for kind of being brave and bold and not creating something really short and unbalanced. Now, there will definitely be some riders who prefer a shorter chainstay, as they can make the bike feel more nimble and playful. And the 465mm chainstay on the large and the XL Crafty is pretty long, especially compared to many other e-bikes on the market that typically have around 440 to 450mm chainstays. Personally, I find the longer chainstay provides excellent stability, particularly at high speeds and on steep descents. does affect the bike's handling a little bit. They can feel less agile when cornering or in tighter sections, but the trade-off is a more grounded and controlled ride. One thing I noticed about the bike immediately that I needed to change was the tyres. The stock tyres held the bike back. So we've just done 1,000 metres of descending just over the first couple of hours this morning. These tyres are very, very comfortable, but in 2.6 front and rear and a pretty hard Max Terra compound, I've noticed two things. They're very, very pingy, very floaty, doesn't feel like I've got a defined edge, and they're just not quite soft and grippy enough. Cruising trails, they're fine, but as soon as you start climbing steep stuff, or you start hitting some fast stuff and even some more flat kind of corners, just lack a bit of definition on them. I don't really like changing too much on new test bikes, but I felt that with the techie trails in Finale, the stock tyres just went up to the job. So I fit a set of narrower DH Max Grip rubber that the bike probably should ship with as stock. With fresh, more supple, grippier rubber, it made a big difference, and I could now focus on the bike's handling and suspension performance. The rear was very supple on the initial stroke, and it felt like I had a fair bit more travel than the advertised 150mm. I did find the rebound tune on the shock very fast, and even on the slowest rebound setting on the Fox shock, it was still a little bit too fast. Adding a bit more sag by removing some pressure from the shock helped a little bit, but still I'd like to have had a little bit more adjustability to slow it down a little bit more. The bike is so stable at high speed descents, and hitting some of the steep rocky chutes in Finale was a ton of fun. This is very likely the most capable climbing e-bike I've ever tried. The partnership of the punchy Bosch motor with its new sensor technology and the bike's geometry with full 29er wheels with those long chainstays make it an outstanding e-bike to climb on. The front end is planted on the floor and there's tons of grip at the back wheel to help with traction. I found that as long as I could keep spinning the cranks, the bike would just continue to climb. I wasn't limited at all by front wheel lift or rear end traction. The new Bosch Generation 5 motor looks very similar to the previous gen, but there's some really noticeable refinements. One of the things I've noticed is when you're climbing, especially up this steep, very loose, kind of shingle, dusty, steep inclines, is that you can very finely tune the amount of power that the motor delivers to the rear wheel with your feet. And by that, what I mean is, if the wheel starts spinning ever so slightly, you can let up pressure on the pedals and it's so quick to react. It's very, very sensitive. And it means that there's more control at the rear wheel. So whilst there's still 85 Newton meters of torque and 600 watts, which is enough to propel me up these steep climbs in Finale, I'm getting less rear wheel sliding and slipping and skidding. And I think some of that's down to the new inertia sensor that they've got in the motor as well. So it can now tell the incline that the bike is on, and it can adjust the power accordingly. So as you're getting steeper and steeper, it can change the power delivery of the motor. Essentially, it means I've got more balance and more stability when I'm climbing. And paired with the long rear end, the 465mm chainstay, it's very glued to the floor. And all I have to do is spin gently, put a little bit more pressure in here and there, and ease up slightly if I feel the rear wheel slipping slightly, point the bike in the right direction, and it just cruises up these trails. It's kind of effortless to climb. And even though it's got a fairly high stack height and 38mm rise bars, I don't feel it want to lift up at all on the front. And one of the goals Mondraker had was to make a really great climbing e-bike, and so far I've been really impressed with the climbing capabilities. The new Bosch motor is quiet under power as well. It's not silent, there is a noise to it, there's a tone, almost like an electric car kind of sound. It's not distracting or it's not irritating. It's a tone that's quite pleasant to hear. Going down hills, it is completely silent. The bike is so quiet, there's no clatter or rattle from the motor. Bosch have completely decoupled the cranks when you're coasting, so there's no motor backlash, there's no gear noise. There's no distractions in the background like rattling away and irritating noises. They've done a great job with the refinement of this motor.
The rest of the kit on the bike is of a decent build. Extremely powerful SRAM Maven brakes, SRAM GX transmission, alloy wheels and a 210mm dropper. They also spec size-specific handlebars, with a 38mm rise on the larger bike, with the smaller bikes having a 25mm rise.
The bike can fit either an 800 Wh or 600 Wh battery, Bosch's new power tube batteries. They're using the highest energy density cells as well, the new 21700 cells. So this has the 800 Wh battery and it is fully removable. And this has a weight of 3.9 kilos. Now that's half a kilo lighter than Bosch's previous generation 750. They do a 600 Wh battery as well that saves a bit of extra weight over this one, 900 grams actually, if you wanted to save a little bit of weight on the total bike. I quite like having the big battery, 800 Wh for basically all day rides is possible. And this is removable just with a 5mm Allen key. So there we go, Bosch's 800 Wh power tube, 3.9 kilos. The 600 and the 800 are exactly the same length. The 600 Wh is just narrower and it saves 900 grams. So it's not too bad in terms of the size. They've kept the weight shorter than the previous generation. That keeps the weight slung lower. It's not raised right to the top of the frame. If you did want to get a spare, you can do that. You just need to get a different plate or you just need to swap the plate. So if you wanted a 800 and a 600, to do a battery swap, is 4 bolts and then you put this carbon plate onto the battery. Or you can just buy a spare carbon plate. So you can actually run the range extender as well with either the 600 or the 800 Wh. So essentially you can have a 600 plus a range extender to give you 850, or you can have an 800 plus a range extender to give you 1050, which is a pretty amazing capacity. And there's a water bottle mount under the top tube as well. So if you're going for big rides, which you're probably going to do with 1050 Wh of battery capacity, you're going to want to carry water. Not everyone likes carrying backpacks. I prefer to keep everything on the bike. So it's great on this frame. You can carry an 800 watt battery, 250 watt range extender, and have space for a water bottle.
The rest of the Bosch kit on the bike is neat. It's minimalist and easy to use. There's Bosch's new discrete bar-mounted display, which can be removed if you don't want it, and it's all simple but effective stuff.
We've been doing quite a variety of different trails here in Finale, some more tame and some more steep kind of enduro tracks. And I've been really impressed with how the bike handles quite a wide range of trails. This one here is quite steep and quite loose. There's just loads of loose rock all over the place and there's loads of different lines. And I've found in the low position, it's slackened the head angle a little bit and it's just made it a little bit more confidence inspiring out the front. There's a couple of things I've noticed. The seat tube height, although it kind of ends there, because I've got a longer dropper in, I can't get it any lower than what we have here. So I do find on the super steep stuff, it kind of gets caught in between my legs, the dropper, even when it's completely slammed. And it's a 2929. It's not a mullet, which is fine for the purpose, but the rear wheel can get a bit of rear tyre buzz on the backside on some super steep stuff. That being said, it's not really a full-on enduro bike. It's a 160 and 150 rear travel, kind of all mountain, aggressive trail bike really, but it can handle a lot. This is a downhill track in Finale and it's got no problem getting down there. It's just, you can find the limit on some of the real challenging stuff, but it's still totally doable. It's been really impressive. I've tried a couple of different settings on the shock and I've actually reduced the amount of pressure I've got in there. That's made it feel a little bit more supple. I found it quite easy to use all of the travel, but I've never felt any harsh bottoms out. Even though the O-ring, I keep adjusting and it's fallen off the end of the shock, which shows I'm pretty much using all of that stroke. But yeah, no kind of harsh bottoms out at all. On the super steep stuff, I have hit the bottom bracket just down here a couple of times, just maybe a little bit prone to that, but it's been quite impressive on a variety of different trails out here in Finale. It's actually a really comfortable bike to ride, and as soon as you hit some of the steeper stuff, it's capable of that as well.
Mondraker created a solid update to the Crafty. Its climbing capabilities are unrivaled, and the outright speed on fast, wide enduro trails is excellent. It's not as nimble and agile as some e-bikes out there, especially on some of the tighter sections, but it's a very capable all-mountain bike that can hit some of the gnarliest terrain.